In 1593, an Irish woman walked into the court of Queen Elizabeth I, not as a prisoner, not as a subject begging for mercy, but as an equal, there to negotiate. She commanded a fleet of ships. She'd fought the English crown for decades. And when English officials called her the most notorious woman in all the coasts of Ireland, they meant it as a warning. Her name was Grace O'Malley. Grian Maul to her own people. And this is the story of how a pirate queen ended up face to face with the most powerful monarch in the world. Grace O'Malley was born around 1530 into a seafaring clan that controlled trade and territory along Ireland's rugged western coast. Her father commanded ships and commanded respect, and from an early age, Grace wanted to command them too. The story goes that, as a young girl, she was told her long hair would catch in the ship's ropes, and that sailing was no place for her. So she cut her hair short and demanded to come aboard anyway. Whether the story is exact history or family legend sharpened over generations, it captures something true about who she became. She learned to sail, to navigate, to read weather and tides. Skills that, in most of Europe at the time, were considered entirely a man's domain. But the O'Malley clan's power came from the sea, and Grace intended to inherit her share of it, regardless of what anyone expected of her. By her teenage years, she was already sailing with her father's fleet. By her 20s, after a marriage that brought her into another powerful seafaring family, she was commanding ships of her own. Grace didn't simply inherit influence. She built it. Ship by ship, alliance by alliance. She commanded a fleet that controlled trade along Ireland's western coast, collecting fees from merchant ships passing through O'Malley waters, a practice that outsiders called piracy and her own people called simply the way things worked. She led her crews personally, not from behind, directing from a castle, but from the deck of her own ship, in weather that kept lesser captains in harbour. Sailors who served under her did so because she was skilled, not because tradition demanded they follow a woman. In a world that gave her every reason to fail, she simply didn't. Her power came from a network of coastal castles and strongholds, each one reinforcing her fleet's reach along the coastline. She traded, she taxed passing ships, and when negotiation failed, she fought. By the time she reached her 30s, English officials in Ireland had already begun writing home about her, not as a curiosity, but as a genuine problem for the Crown's control of the region. England's grip on Ireland was tightening through the mid to late 1500s. And Grace O'Malley's independence, her ships, her castles, her refusal to answer to English authority, made her a direct target. English forces raided O'Malley strongholds. Grace fought back, using her fleet's speed and her knowledge of the coastline against an occupying force that didn't know these waters the way she did. But the conflict came at real cost. At one point, Grace was captured and imprisoned by English forces. Accounts suggest more than once. Held in conditions that would have ended most people's resistance entirely. It didn't end hers. Each time, she returned to the sea, rebuilt what she could, and kept fighting for control of the waters and territory her family had held for generations. Her sons were drawn into the same conflict, and by the early 1590s, one of them was being held prisoner by the English governor of Connacht, a man determined to break the O'Malley clan's power for good. Grace had lost ships, lost freedom more than once, and now faced losing her son. Most people in her position would have had no options left. Grace had one. Go directly to the only person in England with the authority to overrule the governor entirely. In 1593, Grace O'Malley sailed to England and requested an audience with Queen Elizabeth I. An almost unthinkable move for an Irish clan leader the English crown considered an outlaw. The meeting itself has become legendary, and while some details are debated by historians, the core facts are well documented. Two women, each holding real power in a world that gave women very little of it, met as equals. Grace reportedly refused to bow in the customary way, and the two conversed in Latin, since Grace spoke no English and Elizabeth no Irish. Grace made her case directly for her son's release, for the return of confiscated property, for relief from a governor she accused of abusing his authority. And remarkably, it worked. Elizabeth agreed to several of Grace's demands, including her son's release, and issued instructions intended to rein in the governor's conduct. It wasn't a total victory. The underlying conflict between English rule and Irish autonomy was far larger than one negotiation could resolve. But for a woman who'd spent her life being called an outlaw by the English crown, walking out of that palace with her son's freedom secured was a victory few could have predicted, and fewer still could have pulled off. Grace O'Malley continued sailing and asserting her authority along Ireland's coast for years after her meeting with Elizabeth, into her 60s, and possibly beyond. An extraordinary run for a life spent almost entirely in open conflict with the most powerful empire in the world. She died around 1603, the same year as the Queen she'd once faced down in a Tudor palace. Her exact burial site remains debated, though tradition places her on Clare Island. Off the coast, she spent her life commanding. What Grace O'Malley built didn't survive as a lasting political dynasty. The O'Malley clan's independence, like so much of Gaelic Ireland's autonomy, was eventually absorbed into English control in the decades that followed. But her story survived in a way titles and territory couldn't guarantee. Passed down as legend, along the coast she sailed. A woman who commanded ships, fought an empire, and walked into its royal court, refusing to bow.